Well, my friends, it has been one hell of a week. Don't think I have to tell you what the top story has been, but the Hill team has been all over the coverage here in D.C. and beyond.
Joining us via Skype is the Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack. He has the debrief. Bob, it's great to see you. How are you? We miss you in the studio.
Well, I miss you, and listen, you guys have done a great job this week in continuing to broadcast.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
so,
you.
Bob, let's start off with this stimulus package. We're seeing this $1 trillion package floated by Mitch McConnell and GOP leadership. Is it the final version? What are the negotiation processes going to look like? And how quickly can we get hands in the cash in the hands of American workers as fast as humanly possible?
Well, cash is coming. It's just a matter of when. And this package is not the final package. It's going to have to be negotiated with Senate Democrats. Remember, this is only a Senate Republican plan, roughly $1 trillion that would get various payments, depending on your income level, into the hands of America. But I think maybe more importantly, it allows for small business loans and basically people to continue making payroll. Here. That's the big issue because, yes, one-time payments or two-time payments, they could help. But the fact is that a lot of businesses need access to capital as long as it doesn't lead to more layoffs. There are stipulations in this. So we've got a long way to go. And this is honestly, and we had a story on this yesterday by Alex Bolton that was very good. This is going to be a test of the relationship, which is not good, between Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer.
All right, so that Skype connection with Bob not working out too well, but we're very glad that he could join us even for a little bit. Hope that you stay safe, Bob. We've been talking about these bailout packages, and Democrats seem to be finally realizing that they've been kind of outflanked and outplayed by Republicans here. Now they're coming in with what is, a correct position that too much money is going to corporations, not enough money going to workers, not enough pro-worker provisions in any of this. But so far, all the way around, doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
No, it certainly doesn't. So I was just reading a little bit of reporting about what this is all going to look like. Mitch McConnell's going to open it up to like 24 lawmakers and aides. I mean, look, that's all great, but if this is the starting point, what are we going to be squabbling about? We're going to be trying to make it not less regressive. We're not getting the fundamental change that we need. And look, this is like 1929, 1930 all over again, this is actually what the Republican Congress did at the time, is that they did very mealy-mouthed measures. The president at that time Herbert Hoover was so awful, but they kept passing these. They did not take the crisis serious enough for what needed to meet the moment. And guess what? They lost 157 seats in the House in the 1932 election. Wow. That's starting to look like what could happen to both Democrats and Republicans if they continue this complete corporatism, and they're trying to have regressive trying to have regressive payments, not bailing people out in the proper manner. Again, the crisis response we're at right now is, I think, about on par with where we were with the Great Recession. Right? But we're not in a Great Recession. We're in something 10 times in the orders of magnitude, cataclysmic economically, that we need to respond in kind. And I just fear what's going to happen is they're going to pass something 1/10 of what it should be, and they'll all pat themselves on the back and say, look what we did for working families. Senate's going to jet home because none of them want to be here in Washington right now because they're all afraid of getting coronavirus. They can't vote remotely, so they're not going to do anything. And look, we are in a situation now where things are getting so much worse day by day, week by week, that if they go home for even 10 days, they're going to come back to a different country. We will be a different nation in 10 days.
And I think we can't even wrap our heads around how profoundly altered this nation will be coming out of this crisis, almost regardless of the response. But your point is so well taken about, in the Great Recession, yes, there was kind of this crumbling that happened very quickly with Lehman Brothers and how that all went down. But it was nothing like this, where in an instant, the entire nation is shut down. The administration is begging states to not release their specific unemployment claims numbers because they don't want to freak everybody out. They're like, just classify it. Just say, is it like low, medium, high, or very high? Don't give us any specific numbers. We're going to wait till the national numbers come out because they're so concerned about how overwhelming that's going to be because it is all happening at once. So you're absolutely right. They're going to say $1 trillion. It's more than what we did during the Great Recession. So way to go us. This is sufficient. We did what we needed to do. We stepped up to the plate. When the reality is, it needs to be orders of magnitude greater, the stimulus now, the relief now that comes out of this crisis than what we saw in 2008. And by the way, that amount in 2008 was insufficient. It was insufficient.
Yeah, right. It didn't meet the moment.
It didn't meet the moment. Yeah. And, that was partly because of like bad faith arguments on the Republican side and all this like deficit, woe is me, the debt, et cetera, alarmism, which of course never comes to pass. But we ended up with 10% unemployment rate, which was devastating. We ended up with, suicide spiking, all those horrible things that you see in a recession, families losing their homes who still haven't recovered, who are now in a very precarious position to weather this particular crisis. So even that wasn't enough for that moment. So it's certainly not even close to enough for this moment. And you also think about the dichotomy of, on the one hand, you have Republican senators having this regressive approach saying like lower income people, basically you don't deserve anything. On the other hand, what do we see? Some of them at least protecting themselves, protecting their own stock portfolios, making sure that they don't have to suffer in even the smallest, tiniest way while they're feeding the American people a pack of lies a couple weeks ago about how this was going to be no big deal, as they're getting the briefings and the information to tell them that, in fact, this is going to be a pandemic and a crisis the likes of which we have never seen in our lifetimes.
Yeah, and this is, again, we have two things. We need to get the economy. First of all, we need to inject a whole lot of cash while we all have to stay at home. But more importantly, the governments have got to get their act together. Sheltering in place for a month is not the solution. You got to take that month and use it as a time period in order to get us all back outside.
We cannot shelter in place forever.
No, exactly. And people won't do it. That's the other thing. If you try and get people inside 3 months, forget about it. That's going to be actual pandemonium in terms of societal collapse. And it's funny because I've been reading like prepper literature for a long time, and like I know, shocker, but what they talk about is how quickly societies can collapse.
You realize
how quickly social orders are literal just social constructions, and that things can change in an instant. Not to quote Lenin, as I'm loath to, but he said that something about change cannot happen in decades, and in weak decades of change.
That's it. That's it.
And I think that's where we're at. Yeah, decades of change are happening right now in this country, and we have to keep our eye on the ball, keep our eye on the prize, on what exactly about the economy needs to work, not work, get people back together, because we are basically in a planned economy right now.
Yeah.
Only the government can make everybody whole and get people back, and so that means that the government's choices have a whole lot of ramifications for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, think about how laughable the whole debate unfolding in the Democratic primary seems now.
Yeah.
The whole like, Bernie, how will you pay for it on Medicare for all? And how will you get any of this done? It's just fantasy to think that anything could ever change in this town.
Right.
Now Bernie's whole platform seems way too small ball, even to meet the moment. I mean, Medicare for all seems like and frankly, a no-brainer for a lot of people at this point. Like, yes, everybody needs health care right now. Everybody needs debt relief right now. And if we had had those things, those pieces of the platform and the universal benefits that he has been championing, we'd be in a much better position to try to weather the storm. So it is remarkable to think how in just weeks, or think about Andrew Yang, right? He comes on the scene, $1,000 a month, everyone's like, that's ridiculous. It's too expensive. No way. People don't deserve it. Americans will never accept it, etc. And now, look, we're not talking about endless UBI, but you have freaking Mitt Romney like, yes, $1,000, send it out immediately to everyone.
The Overton window changes really quickly. And it looks like all of our petty squabbles and the things that we were talking about, they look ridiculous compared to what we are right now. And that's, one thing you and I are going to try and highlight on this show is the effect on average Americans' lives, and especially the most vulnerable who are out there, making sure that they're taken care of, because those are the people who things dry up for in an instant. I was looking I've been hearing a lot about charity, and, food banks rely on donations from the grocery store. There's no donations to give. And then the money that they get comes from businesses and charitable donation. Nothing. This is like in the Great Depression. We are in a situation where our charity organizations can collapse. They can be in a situation where they can't provide food. What are we going to do? There's only one force that's large enough for this. And the sooner we recognize it and get to work on all the policies and all that, but I truly fear that we are going to miss this moment. And in a year from now, we are going to be living in a year or two or three, it will fester into the biggest populist rage we will ever see. And like we said, it'll look very tame compared to what will come.
Yeah. I mean, think of our homeless citizens who shelters are closing, rely on those food donations, food banks, and, there's very little thought towards what is going to happen to them. I mean, literally the most vulnerable, elderly residents in nursing homes. I mean, all of these pieces, and you just don't see Washington up to the task right now. And I mean, it's not surprising, but it's still sad. It's still sad to watch it all unfold. So we're going to continue updating you on where they are on the bailouts, where they rise to the challenge. Look, we give them all the credit in the world. Where they fall short, you better believe we're going to hold them to account. Democrat, Republican, we don't care.
Yeah, certainly.
All right, we're going to have more for you after this.